the boys said, "Do you want a part-time job?" And I said, "Yeah, just friends at school." And I said, "Yeah, fine. What were we selling?" He says, "We're selling lollies to doors." And I said, "Okay, what about?" And he said, "It's something to do," and this is really digging in. We were selling lollies for the Rwanda appeal, and I had no idea what's Rwanda appeal. And it was a war-torn, sort of a country that needed help at the time in Africa.
Yeah.
I didn't know this at the time. All I did is knock on the door and say, "I'm selling lollies for the Rwanda appeal." I knew the script. So people were just buying lollies and feeling sorry for you and all that, Anyway, so I did that for a little while. And was interesting. We're just, again, you learn the art of selling.
Absolutely.
The approach, the knock on the door, the smile. And people just took that nicely,
Especially
in most cases anyhow.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm really excited to present my new guest, Roy Halabi from Guardian Property Specialists. This is going to be a very interesting interview. I'm excited to showcase some of the learnings that he's taught me throughout sitting down with him here. I know you're going to love this one. Coming from a war-torn country in Lebanon to owning multiple businesses, you're not going to want to miss this. Roy, welcome.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you for having us.
No problem at all. Thank you for coming. Mate, take me to the early days. Obviously, Lebanese heritage.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes, I mentioned. So I was born here in Australia, 79, 1980. My parents came mid-70s to Australia, started the life here. A little bit later in 1980, roughly, they decided to go back. So my dad ran a good business there. We're into curtainware and haberdashery, almost like a Spotlight kind of shop we had over in Lebanon, in Tripoli, which I understand your heritage comes from as well. So that ran for, I think it was around 13 years, 93, and that was the Civil War, mind you, so all through the 80s in Lebanon. For people that know, 93 we came back to Australia, so we almost hit restart in 93 back here in Australia, and thank God it's been good since.
That's incredible. How many siblings do you have?
So I've got an older brother, I've got a late sister and a younger sister.
Okay, so in Lebanon there was your parents and four of you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So mum and dad and four of us. And as I said, we came back in 93. Around about 99, we've done a couple of different things. Yeah. One of the more momentous things towards the end, just before real estate, is that I did cars. So it was importing. I worked for someone that imported Japanese cars.
Okay.
So it was all the hotted up cars now everyone sorts after. So the Supras, the 300s, the GTRs and all of that. So I worked in that space in my 20s. So you can just imagine.
Oh, you made it in heaven.
that was now looking back, that was really
mad.
heaven. Yeah. So it was really good.
So let me take you back to when your dad had the Spotlight company, the haberdashery. What did you learn from him? What did you learn from your dad from a young age, like starting a business or having a pretty good business in Lebanon? Yeah. What did you learn from your dad that maybe you take on into?
So look, it comes without knowing, but it's entrepreneurship. Yeah. My dad is the typical Lebanese businessman that buys and sells, and I grew up in the shop, so so most of our time spent in the shop. Mum worked in the shop as well, so. You pick up a lot of habits of selling and dealing with customers and all of that. So it's been really, really interesting that a lot of things are sort of entrenched in us without knowing, and the hustle and all of that. So it comes out later.
Even customer service, right? So you're
big on customer service, huge on customer service, really velvet gloving. So my older brother, who's also in real estate with me, king at velvet glove kind of treatment, and he doesn't.
That 5-star service is like
has to be. And you know what? And it's not for a buyer different to a tenant. Yeah. He treats the tenant just the same as he treats a buyer, and people love that.
And I think that's probably ingrained in you from when your dad had the business in Lebanon.
Absolutely.
Like meeting those people, like you said, war-torn country. industry. So
Yeah.
you're getting people from all walks of life, and you have to just treat them all
Absolutely.
with the same level of respect, right? That's what they come
100%.
through.
And you learn it more so here, just on that,
Yeah.
is that you just don't know who's walking through the door just by appearance.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry to say, some people judge people because of background, where they came from. Oh, he's a spender, he's not.
Yeah.
I've seen it all.
You've seen it all.
Yeah.
And it's important to take them face value, meet them, give them the time of day,
You just
regardless of
don't
what
know.
they look
Absolutely.
like. And you don't know where it's going to end up. Hey? So,
Yeah.
well, that's good. So your dad ran that business. Did he sell that business? Did it wind down? How was
It
the
actually winded down.
Right.
We owned the property.
Yeah.
That the property got leased out whilst we were back here in Australia.
Okay, and then you came back to Australia. And how did you restart? You mentioned you reset, you 93. And so
Yeah,
what
so
happened
that
then?
was for me.
How old were you then? 93?
So 13, 14.
Okay, so pretty crucial point.
Yeah, you
Teenage
know what?
school.
It was tough because I'll give you a little bit more. I actually grew up around Bankstown, so I went to
Okay.
Bankstown Boys.
Okay.
And that was tough on its own, and I'm new in the country and whatnot. So
Absolutely.
that came with its own challenges.
Especially starting 13, so you were probably year 7 or year 8.
I was
and
year
then
8, yeah.
you
So
started in that
halfway
area.
year 8, I started at Bankstown Boys. So you
How
can
was
just
that?
imagine. Well, I was the outsider.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough, but we
Teaches
pushed
you
through.
resilience, I think,
So
right?
much, so much
Yeah,
so, right?
yeah.
And I'm still friends with the boys. So, and you see it all.
Yeah. And then so you came back, started there. What did your parents do for work then? Or what was the
Look, bits and pieces, not a whole heap of stuff. It's just
Whatever you can do to get
myself and
by, business,
just getting
yeah.
by stuff. My brother worked almost everything. So he was in his 20s.
Okay.
He was engaged at the time, I remember. So he's 10 years my senior.
Okay.
So whilst I was 13, he was 23
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah.
We started working together in multiple businesses. Fast track a little bit when he started, because we just did wherever we could do at the time. Or he did more so. I was still at school. But straight after school, he was opening businesses. One of them was a fruit shop, out of all things, in Double Bay. So it was a boutique. It was called Exotica. It was really, really cool.
Good name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So that had a juice bar, a salad bar, and things like that. So that was really cool.
You were ahead of your time, because now they're the
Now
rage.
it's back in,
now
right?
It's back in. And
Yeah.
Back
So,
then you were ahead of your game.
That only stayed with us a couple of years. We had a partner in that as well. But that was a while ago, yeah.
Well, okay, so take me back to when you were that 13, 14. What did you want to? What was your goal? What did you want to do for work, or did you just go look at your dad? Your brother being 10 years older, and your dad in the business and the workforce. Did you go, I'm just going to do that, or did you try hard in school, or what was your? School like for you?
I wasn't the high achiever at school. I'll tell you straight. I went past. I passed everything, but I wasn't the uni kid. So my siblings were, and they all have.
Yeah.
I'm probably the the black sheep,
Don't
as
say
they
it.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in the sense that I did not, and I say it to my son now, who's 15, is that, look, I did it the tough way out, and I managed to pull through. And thank God, where I am, I'm quite comfortable. It's just that I had to work much, much harder because of that lack of qualification. So what I advise them and many others is that piece of paper does something. It just fast tracks it for you, and I've got examples of that. But so for me, I didn't know a lot. I loved psychology coming out of high school. I didn't study it, but I was intrigued with the way the mind works, and why do people buy or not buy? Why do people do things or say things the way they do? Yeah. So that was very interesting for me. Yeah. I didn't. Now I'm getting back into it with a little bit of the psyche behind selling or property. Yeah. And I've got a plan on a book about that.
Nice.
But that's in the making.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Just to add to the other 10 things you're juggling, which we'll get to.
Maybe more like
There's a lot.
100. But yeah, you're right. But look, it's exciting.
Okay, and then so you finished school, and then did you work? What did you do after school?
So bits and pieces, door-to-door selling, and amongst other things.
You brushed over door to door.
Yeah.
How was that? Because that's not easy.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't
What were you
easy.
selling?
The funny thing is, it was
Whatever you
hardly
could.
sell. Well, I'll say a little bit about it. So the boys said, "Do you want a part-time job?" And I said, "Yeah, just friends at school." And I said, "Yeah, fine. What were we selling?" He says, "We're selling lollies to doors." And I said, "Okay, what about?" And he said, It's something to do, and this is really digging in. We were selling lollies for the Rwanda appeal, and I had no idea what's Rwanda
Oh, yes.
appeal.
Yeah.
And it was a war-torn, sort of a country that needed help at the time in Africa.
Yeah.
I didn't know this at the time. All I did is knock on the door and say, I'm selling lollies for the Rwanda appeal. I knew the script. So people were just buying lollies and feeling sorry for you and all that, Anyway, so I did that for a little while, and it was interesting. It was just, again, you learn the art of selling.
Absolutely.
The approach, the knock on the door, the smile, and people just took that nicely,
Especially
in most cases anyhow.
Yeah, the ones that said no, I just
walk
on.
away. So
you get no a lot in life.
You get a lot of no's, but it builds the resilience and it teaches you how to get the yes.
Absolutely. So you did that for a little bit, and then at what point did you get into real estate? Obviously, you've got your business now, Guardian.
So it was the
Property
cars.
Specialist.
Yep. So it was the cars before that.
Okay, so before that was cars.
Yeah, there was a couple of gigs there.
Yeah.
But then eventually, which was around the 2000, so 1999 to 2000, we got into real estate. So Richard, my older brother, got into it 1 or 2 years before me.
Okay.
It was a startup. It was actually a revolutionary style of real estate. So it wasn't the LJ Hooker style.
Okay.
It was more wholesaling or selling investment properties to investors.
Okay.
And wholesaling projects. So now we call it project marketing, but it was wholesaling, getting on a project, giving it to a bunch of others, which would sell with us and whatnot. So I took on the B2B style. So I gave the projects to other project marketers, and we did massive volumes.
Wow.
The business was turning over at that time around the 2000 and something, 2001, 2002, like 100 properties a month,
Wow.
So it was really, really
all around Sydney, or just?
It was all around Australia.
Wow.
So it was really revolutionary, and we learned a lot from that team. Again, that business lasted a while, but then when the GFC at the time hit, that company was wound down. Luckily, at the time, we weren't directors, my brother and I, and we went up and set up GPS, Guardian Property Specialists.
Wow.
So Guardian Property Specialists initiated just the two of us. And we predominantly did investment sales.
Okay.
So Richard, again, with the velvet glove, helps clients find the suitable investment properties for their purposes. That business evolved a whole heap. Predominantly, the turning point was around 7-8 years ago, when I realized within myself that I'm truly a project marketer. Okay. I love projects. I love putting it together. I love giving it a brand. I love sort of taking it
How
home.
do you like working with the developers and the builders and stuff like that?
Look, I understand them, right? I understand them. And look, they come with their own challenges, but I understand where they're coming from. I understand what they want to do. Funnily enough, we end up having internal fights within the office because I'm pulling with the developer because he's my client, and Richard's pulling with the investor because that's his client.
And you're trying to do the best for your client, right?
And they end up getting the best deal, right?
Wow.
Because, there's a bit of pull and push.
You're trying to do the right thing for your client. So
both of us are,
you're fighting for
right?
them.
So, and then we understood that Richard is built like a buyer's agent. And that word buyer's agent only come to fruition recently, especially in Australia. It's very popular in America and UK. So we're bringing it home to Western Sydney, to Australia. And we're also in Western Australia. So we're pretty big on Perth properties as well.
Okay. And it's really interesting you mentioned Perth and the mines and stuff like that. Now, in from an investment point of view, there's people that are trying to get into the market.
Yep.
There's people that may already be in the market and they're looking at expanding their portfolio. What advice would you give people looking, top three? What's top three tips?
Oh, on
people
the spot.
looking
Here we go.
at an investment. I know it depends on the different strategy. Like it depends if you're a first home, or buying your first investment, or if you're expanding multiple.
That's
so
right.
Let's focus on the most, I think, important one, which is the people that are looking at getting their first investment.
Right.
They're scared.
Yeah.
There's interest rate rises, the economic crisis, there's COVID. What would be your top three tips for someone who's looking at getting into an investment property?
Okay. Let's give it a go. So look, just so many avenues and so many topics to cover within that, but just briefly, a client comes to me and says, I don't know where to start. I want to get into property investment. Firstly, it's this uncovering why they're doing it, why invest, why property. And that takes a little bit of time. Just say they're convinced of property, they're convinced of investing. The next step is where, right? So of course, the typical is the location and demographics and, you know, the socioeconomics of the area and so forth is very, very important. And the potentials. We tend to find areas, and we've been blessed with the art of finding these areas prior to them rising. So we've had some recent examples where areas that you wouldn't think of, like people thought, what are you doing there? Just, you know, sort of high level in Tamil, which is Picton. And people are like, why are you doing a land subdivision in Tamil? And, you know, a couple of years later, it's like, now I understand, you know? So we've got the eye to pick areas prior to them going off. So you don't want to follow the media, you want to beat the media, right? So, and that's where people miss out on the opportunities because they're not getting into it early enough. They're following the hype. So probably one of the first things is, of course, look, going back a step is getting your budget right, because your budget determines where you can and cannot invest. Is it a house or land package? Is it a unit? Is it a renovation? Is it not? Are you capable? Do you have the right team around you to do that? You know, one. So determining the strategy, and then two, beating the market. You know, getting in there early. And three would be to have the right team around you. I can't miss that.
So
if I was to put it on top three.
In terms of team, you mean like finance broker, accountant,
the whole lot,
the whole shebang.
The whole shebang. So really, look, most people will keep it simple. We'll need an accountant, especially if you're getting into, you know, another discussion point, which is self-managed super funds and how to go about doing that. What I can and can't do with self-managed super funds. But if it was just standard buying, you're getting into your first investment would be the pre-approval. What can I borrow? And there's a whole heap of talk about, you know, sort of rent vesting. So staying renting where you are, but invest in property.
That's become big, hey, over the last...
Look, it has become a lot more popular. I don't think we've really gotten there just yet, because we all have this mentality, and it's an old mentality, but I think it's changing eventually, where people say, well, I've got to buy my own home and build it and sort of pay it off and whatnot. But people are becoming a little bit more aware, probably through social media and other things that, and podcasts like this, really, is that there's other ways of doing it. If I'm a good income earner, it doesn't have to be a high income earner, just an income earner, and I'm paying taxes, let me offset that through things like tax depreciation, through negative gearing, which are very legal ways of tax minimization. People don't realize that.
100%. Well, because you're not taught that, right? So again, if we talk, this could be another discussion point.
Oh my God.
You go back to school and we're not taught about credit cards, bank cards, debit cards, depreciation, negative gearing, buying a property.
The art of money.
People don't even know how to buy property. The amount of people that reach out that you probably work through is just,
that's right.
I want to buy a property. And you go, okay, have you got pre-approval? That's right. What's that? Have you spoken to a bank?
So we don't come across as educators as such. There's companies out there that claim education / selling property. The thing is, it's going to be so apparent that you're only educating me to sell me a property at the end. Like, let's just be real, right? So maybe, yes, but at least you're getting that piece of education. But there's no formal education without the plug of anything at the end. So it could be the broker, it could be the accountant, but everyone wants something out of the pie, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But as long as they're doing it lawfully, right, ethically, within the right means, why not? Just learn, go out there and get things done. Because you look back and the, there's some disasters out there. I'm not going to say there isn't, but most people and most millionaires and billionaires and people that have made wealth through property have made it through property, and they haven't made it through, look, startups makes money, tech makes money.
But this we're talking about wealth, like generational
like real
wealth,
hard
tangible
wealth. You look at all the big names out there, there's always a property component. I don't like dropping names, but if you did, whether it's the Trump of the world or the Tate of the world or whoever, they all have a huge.
But even those startups and the ones that set up their own businesses and stuff, they make a lot of money, but they're purchasing $20 million houses in 0.5%.
Correct.
They know they put the houses in bricks and mortar, which is still a solid investment. But Australians love real estate too, don't you know? Like you go to a barbecue or something, and there's your uncle or someone who's just talking about real estate, and they all know about it. But you've just got to take it with a grain of salt too, like you said about the education piece. There's a lot of fear mongering from the media. There's a lot of uncles at barbecues that know everything.
That's right.
You just got to make sure as a first home buyer or a first investor, where you take your advice from.
Going back the book in the making if you want. And this is not a plug about it because it's nowhere near.
You should have
ready.
brought the book. You should have brought
It's
the
not even
manuscript.
real ready. We did what we called a the property guide.
Yeah.
So it was a collation, and that's available. But the property
How?
guide.
Where can they get it?
I'll get it to you. Don't worry. I'll send you the ebook as well.
Yeah.
But the idea of that is just a collation of topics.
Okay.
Capital growth versus rental returns,
That's
new versus old.
Yeah.
So it's a collation of articles that we've done over the years, and we just put it in a book and we called it the guide. So that's done. But I've always been intrigued to why do people buy one property?
Yeah.
Why do people never buy a property? Why do people own 20 but want more? So what's the psychology behind that? And are they coming from, sort of privileged families that are educating them about property? Or have they been listening to things like this?
Yeah.
Or, so there's, it just fascinates me personally to why people do and why people don't.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a trigger point
When
in
do you
between
think it's going to be
somewhere.
finished?
Yeah. Well,
knows?
I don't know.
Have you started?
I have started.
Okay.
So all the dot points are there. But
Oh.
anyway, that's maybe later down
Maybe
the
next
track.
time when we catch up, it'll be done.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. Let's go back to Guardian GPS.
Yes.
So, what do you do? Tell us.
So 7 years ago, there was a turning point. A couple of things happened at that time. We did a large project where we have an office space there now. It was 118 units and 28 shops.
Yeah.
So we did the project marketing for that, and that was a healthy size for us from what we've done prior. Because usually prior to that, we've just sold a couple in a building here and a couple in a building there. That collated our effort into one sort of textbook scenario project marketing.
Yeah.
And that did really, really well. So we plugged ourselves there to do property management, and we started doing that. So at that time, that was around 7 years ago. In my mind, I was going to wind down and start doing less in life. But really what it did is I spun it around the other way. And what we did is we created 7 divisions to our business.
Okay.
Them 7 divisions became, and I'm not going to mention them all offhand, but, the buyer's agent, project marketing, commercial real estate, property management, tax depreciation and events. Here they are, the 7 or 6, I think. So and general real estate. So what we did is we split the business to 7 divisions. Why did we do that? To give us clarity and to give our clients clarity about the services we do.
Yeah.
So when I get approached, it's like, what do you do? So I do general real estate, but I do project marketing.
Yeah.
And I can also help you as a buyer's agent. And there's one person within the team that can do that at any point in time. And of course, property management, residential and commercial. So what we've done is we split the services. All these services are transactional services or management services throughout your ownership of property. So none of these is finance, accountant. We don't build, we don't renovate, we don't do any of that. We don't do conveyancing. So it's just the transactions of property. So whether you're buying or selling, commercial, residential, we got it covered.
You got it covered.
Pretty
You're
much.
their contact. Yeah.
Pretty
You
much.
can-
And we do that well
Yeah.
in Sydney. And I would say more, my pride and joy is Western Sydney.
Okay.
I'm heavily involved with a few chambers of commerce. I was the vice president of Parramatta Chamber of Commerce. I'm a board member there.
Yeah.
And I'm also, a member of a few others, whether it's Bankstown or Hills or Liverpool. But so I love my Western Sydney side of things.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, my brother is an expert, and I would call him the ambassador of Western Australia. So Western Australia or Perth is untapped, still a little bit untapped, unknown.
Okay.
So when you think of buying an investment property outside of Sydney, people straight away pretty much will say Queensland.
Yeah.
So we've done Queensland, we've done Victoria, we've done the southwest corridor of Victoria, which is Tarney, Wenham Vale, all of that. So we've had experience there. People made lots of money buying there many, many years ago. But our flavor now in 2023 is Perth. So there's a lot of reason why and affordability and whatnot. And my brother knows Perth like we know Sydney.
Wow.
So there's
What's
a
the
lot to learn.
attraction to Perth? Besides, what is it? Or your brother like?
Look, some people say it's the mining, but we actually don't. It's still young in the sense that investors haven't infiltrated, prices haven't jumped. They've got so much land. If you look at the map, Western Australia is like a third of Australia in land mass. So it's huge, you know, and people don't consider it. And my joke is they use the same currency over there, yeah?
Yeah, it's like
so
6
it's
hours
like,
away,
you know what I
isn't
mean?
it?
It's like,
It's so far.
yeah, it is.
You can go
It
to
is.
Bali
It feels
with
that exactly.
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
go to New Zealand. You can go.
Yeah.
So, but people dismiss it,
Yeah.
and that's what we're trying to educate.
People have enough problems trying to find an investment property in their same state. What advice
right.
do you give them to invest in a state?
Look outside the square a little bit. You know, it doesn't have to be in the suburb, right? And it's got to be in new emerging suburbs, and there's so much of it.
Yeah.
My typical example is the strip between here and Canberra. There's so much happening, right? So I mentioned Picton. I gave a bit of a hint, but there's so much more out that way that's happening. So that's with house and land packages.
Yeah.
The next gig we're doing is in Goulburn, and you think Goulburn? It's like, dude, it's happening.
Yeah, but is it? Goulburn's like only an hour and a half from Canberra.
That's
sorry,
right.
Not Canberra. Campbelltown, isn't it? It's not that far.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
that far. It's not that far at
and
all.
it's nice.
And back the other way between here in Newcastle
Yeah.
and around Newcastle, there's a whole heap. So we really got to step out and do that at least for investment, because an investment property should be treated as a vehicle of making wealth, like making money. And it's not, am I going to live
You can't
there?
be emotional about it. It's
And this
definitely
is what you got to strip
calculated.
away. If
Yeah.
it is an emotional purchase, then we'll treat it as an emotional
Yeah, that's
purchase.
right.
We'll find you, the home that you want to live in,
That's
and
right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if it's an investment, you really have to treat it as an investment and start looking outside the square.
And the numbers have to work, like any other investment
That's
that you make,
all
whether
it's
it's
about.
property or a business.
That's all it's about. So rental yield is equally important to capital growth. Some people say, do I go for capital growth or rental yield?
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not one or the other.
Yeah.
Because if it's high capital growth, little rental yield, you can't pay the mortgage. You can't pay, the loan off.
Yeah, well, you got to service it out of your own
You
pocket.
got to
and that's where
service
you
it,
start.
which means it locks you out from buying other properties.
Yeah.
You can only buy one and
Yeah.
try and finish that. Whereby if it was a rental yield only and no capital growth, what's the point in that?
point in that?
You
Yeah.
own 100 and you still haven't made so much money.
Absolutely.
So
Something that's interesting is there's always that debate, between apartments or houses.
yes.
What's your advice?
Look, you can't get away from saying that houses do gain more value over time than units. Hands down,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Now, it also doesn't mean that apartments don't make money. Slower rate, but if you buy early, you buy right, your yield is stronger.
Yeah.
You're buying in areas that are sought after more for rentals. And, talking about our rental department, we have close to zero vacancy. At any point in time, we would have a 1% from our rent roll that's vacant.
Wow.
So, and within a week, that's
Released.
released again. So there's a lot to be said about that, especially in Sydney.
Yeah.
So, horses for courses. If you can afford to buy a house and your budget allows you to do so, know that the rental yield is not as great.
Yeah.
Then there's another discussion about dual key homes and dual occupancy properties that we provide, which could be a home or could be an apartment, which gives you better rental yield because they're interconnected. There's a whole discussion about how that works and the benefits of that. So unless you can afford to mortgage up for a house and the rental yields that it's going to attract and pay the difference on a house, then you might be forced to a unit. But does that mean I'm not going to?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, 100%.
Just get in there. Just get it done.
Yeah, 100%. So your brother works with the buyers more so, or do you ever have buyers come up to you?
Look, buyers come up to us all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that how we navigate them through what they want.
Yeah.
So certain buyers would come through and say, I want a certain thing.
Okay.
Let's use a funny example is a blue house with a pink roof and a triangle backyard, And I say, well, I don't have that listed, but I'm happy to go out there and find that for you. So if they're specific in what they want, we'll go out
I
there.
was going to say, because you're in a unique position too. So you get you see what sells
Yeah.
and then you see what buyers want. So you're in a unique position there.
Yeah.
Tell me about, in this market, what's selling? What are the top 3 things that people are doing to their properties to get ready for market? What's selling fast?
So we've been quite busy of late with general real estate, some mum and dad, or an investor that's shuffling up their properties. So it could be an investor that owns a property, getting rid of it to refresh, buy a new one, or it could be a mum and dad upgrading or downgrading. So I've always said you've got to you've got to add value to the property to get premium price. So you either spend the money and make at least double what you spent on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you don't and you sell it for a cheap price. So choose your path. If you can and there's the means and you've got the right team where they can go out there and do the renovation for you, I would say definitely go out there and do that. So to prep the home would be number one for maximum value. And that also works with projects. So in a project scenario, have the homes or have at least a display unit nicely presented. So when the sort of potential buyers are coming through, and we do that in project marketing, they really feel like, this could be my home or this could be my investment. So all the numbers are prepped. So second to that would be, to sort of position the marketing right as well. Some people go a little bit cheap on the marketing and the property doesn't come in a nice light. And you're not going to achieve the top value for it, And of course, again, back to the right environment or the right team around you, whether it's, the experts that make the home look good, whether it's the marketing to get the home presented well online and offline and social media and video, and all of these things are required now. Now, they don't have to be top-end production, but you've got to be out there. If you're not seen of the...
You can't sell a secret.
You can't, right? So I get these clients to say, oh, well, just try. I don't want to spend the money on marketing, but just give it a go. And I'm like, I don't have the client in my pocket ready to pull out, right? So you really have to be... front foot forward, best presentation, and have the confidence in picking the right agent that's really going to represent it well, because they're representing your property.
We obviously in our business we see a lot of properties, that aren't presented right, and it's our job to sort of tell them, in collaboration with the agent, like, hey, this is what we think we should be doing.
Absolutely.
So we see a lot of, I don't know if you see it, correct me if I'm wrong, but for our business we see a lot of painting, landscaping, and property styling. That's sort of like the three core areas that we do. Is that
needed?
Is that
absolutely.
What you
that's a minimum.
Okay.
And that I think anyone that's putting a property in the market, if they're not a green thumb, just get someone to do it, right?
First impressions,
paint, because the first thing, like I bought and sold property of my own, and the first thing I do moving into a place is flooring.
That's right.
Let's not move into the big stuff, which is kitchen and bathroom. Let's put that aside, because I'm going through that now and it's a effing headache. So it's full on, right? So at least flooring, simple things like paint and timber flooring, or the floorboards, And that's it. That's that change. I've done that recently, a little while ago, in a Northmead property. It made it sell so much faster and achieve the top price.
It's easy for an agent to say no and let's just take it to the market, but I don't think they're doing the right thing.
I don't like doing that.
Like, just give them the option, and that's where we come out and we go,
absolutely,
this is what we're going to do. Like, let's
absolutely.
Let's
and look, not every vendor and every property owner will take this up. But the ones that do will find benefit in doing so, and they'll find better value. And as I said, they'll, and I won't sort of, I can almost guarantee it, I won't, but in the sense that you will make more money than what you've spent on the property. You always do, because look, clients are sometimes non-visionary or don't want to go through the effort of trying to get the place renovated. So if, I have stuff which is, furnished, right? And I've had so many clients to say, as is, and I just want the key and get yourself out, right? Turnkey with the furniture in there. And I said, sorry, that the furniture's hired. I can ask them if they'll sell it to you, but people are just lazy that way.
I think turnkey's been pretty big since the pandemic. Obviously, material trade shortages. They just want something. There was the block era pre-COVID where everyone wanted to buy something, renovate it, and flip it. But now it's like, I want turnkey, I want to buy it.
That's right.
Open the key and open the door and move in.
That's all. Because we're not, look, I talk about myself. I'm a little bit handy, but not that handy. And if I'm doing anything, whether it's on cars or in the house, I've got to get the tradies out there. And anyone that has it, and God bless you, because if you're dealing with tradies, you need a lot of patience.
We've got a good team, but
right?
Absolutely.
Because look, you need a project manager to do it, because I can't deal with them.
No, but I mean, your job and any other agent's job is to sell the property. You're a salesman, sell the property very well.
That's all.
And present the property in its best light.
That's right.
You don't want to then manage trades. You don't want to manage.
It's too hard.
project managers. It just
Yeah.
can be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we don't want to take you away from doing what you do best.
Yeah.
From a buyer's point of view, what's some of the things that buyers are looking for when they go to a property? So you mentioned things like if they come to you, obviously you might qualify them in terms of what's your budget, where do you want to buy, and what's your strategy type
Yeah.
of thing. But once you've got that and you go into a property and it's say a couple looking at a family house, what's some of the things that they would look at, when they go in? Would they want
Yeah.
turnkey? Would they want...
Look, definitely aesthetics plays a big role,
yeah.
right? So aesthetics, when they move into the place or the
They
first
see it,
glance,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They say meeting people, the first
Yeah.
10 seconds,
Yeah,
you
that's
form
right.
an opinion. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same with property.
Yeah.
So, some people, as I said, some people are not visionary. So if it's got the wrong color scheme
Yeah.
or it's too cluttered or whatever,
Yeah.
just that feeling, that gut feeling, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
People may not be able to strip it in their mind and, and some people go all out on that. I reckon most people just want it ready, right?
They just... Exactly.
So just make it aesthetically pleasing. People talk about even the odor in a place, just the whole feel.
Yeah.
Old school, they used to say, at open homes, bake a cake or something,
I was just
right?
thinking the
Right? They
same
used to
thing.
say that. Now, I don't know if people still doing
Yeah.
that, but
now they just light a candle. but
right?
Yeah.
So, but it's the whole feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
So aesthetics, street appeal.
Yeah.
Even if it's a
Okay.
unit, look, with a unit, you're restricted to how much you could do.
Yeah.
But with a house, and look, not to open up a can of worms and do everything to the place, but I'm a big fan on small things that make a huge difference, right? So whether it's a little bit of planting around the front, gives that pleasing look.
Absolutely.
And you walk in, and it could be just the foyer entry,
Unless
things that.
Unless it's a development site, buyers don't want to walk through, kicking out weeds and walking through shrubs or grass. First impressions are very important. We see it a lot too in our business.
Absolutely.
Why real estate?
Oh, for me, love it. I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
do you love about it? Tell me.
Look, I'm self-employed, so it's a little bit unfair, but it's the flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And the constant challenge and hustle.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. It's just built in me that way. Look, it would be a lot easier having a 9-to-5 job and a set income, but which you always have the opportunity to do. But for me, it's just building the business, finding new challenges. I was mentioning to you earlier, one of the new things that I'm focusing on is building the rent roll and property management. That's something I've never focused on. So it gave me a new
Perspective,
kick,
new
new perspective,
kick.
a new kick, a new something to do,
Yeah.
which is unlike what we've always
So you
done.
like the chase.
I like the chase.
You like
I
the
think
chase,
it's
and
in
then
me.
you like
yeah.
it an end goal.
That's right.
then
That's
you-
right. And I see the end goal. It's
Yeah.
just that I need everyone else working with me, right?
You got to
But
try to harness that.
That's all.
Fault-
That's
that
all. But
culture.
it's real estate is very interesting, and as you said earlier, Australians have a huge passion for real estate, right?
for sure.
So what better than working in it? There's a huge success or a lot of
It's
satisfaction.
also a lot of sorry to cut you off, but a lot
Yeah.
of responsibility on your part and any agent or anyone in real estate.
Absolutely.
It's someone's biggest asset. Like
No,
it's about millions of
absolutely.
dollars in
Absolutely.
assets.
Yeah.
It's not a small feat. So
Yeah.
you've got to be responsible. You've got to be
Absolutely.
an educator. You've got to be an
Absolutely.
adviser.
Yeah, and you
try
got to be sincere in how you do it and what you do it. Genuine. I love these sort of words because I
Yeah.
think they're often forgotten out there, right?
Absolutely.
And I think we've been in business 22 years, and if
Yeah.
you didn't have any sense of sincerity in what you do
Absolutely.
and genuine need for, like, for example, right now you'll see that you look me up and you say, Roy's not doing projects, so how does he say he's doing project management? I'm worried right now. The market's that volatile that I wouldn't hold hands with people that I don't have absolute trust with. My face value is very, very important for me.
Yeah.
22 years in business, building a brand and a name and so
And the
forth.
credibility that comes
And the
with
credibility, I don't want to ruin it with the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So I just, it's almost a little bit like what the John West rejects. It's not like I'll take on everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's right, you'll find us on it.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of, because we've seen the wrongs and the rights, and we've made mistakes in the past, we're not sort of, but thank God that we've done things, in the right way for us to be in business 22 years later. We've seen people come and go in
It's a
GFCs.
high turnover
Very high
industry.
turnover, right?
High
And I see it in staff. But at the end of the day, we have the client's interest at heart.
Yep.
And the client could be the developer or the buyer.
Yep.
And we have good relationships moving forward that
Yep.
years later, I still get the call,
Yeah.
whether I manage their properties or not, to say, hey, I'm thinking of selling.
That's
You know,
nice.
can you help me? And if I can't help them myself, I'll guide them to the right agent that should.
Yeah.
So I'll qualify the agent for them.
That's
and
nice.
Yeah. So I had that, say, in Victoria, they bought from me ages ago and said, it's due to sell. Can you sell it? I said, look, it's an established property and whatnot. I'm going to get you a local agent. So I actually hired them through
That's good.
the process.
So you're an advisor. You're a trusted advisor.
That's
across
all.
The board,
So
and that's-
I carry now on the card as a property mentor only because I actually get so much satisfaction by the guiding process.
Yeah. Obviously, real estate is a bit, it's a perception-based industry. You know, people like to appear like they're flashy and there's cars, and there's the Instagram agents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what that does though is what I'm saying is a lot of young people want to get into real estate for that reason.
That's right.
But you having the longevity in the 22
Yeah.
years, what's your top 3 tips to people
Top 3. I'm going to
looking?
think of 3.
Yeah, think of 3. But what are your top 3 tips for the people looking at entering this industry, but obviously they want to have longevity?
Yeah.
What's your top 3 tips?
Look, the first thing is it's not as glamorous as it looks, right? So let's be real again. It can be glamorous and you can make, you know, the big income and in the 8 figures, 9 figures, 6 figures, whatever you want to call them. The thing is, it's not all the time, right? So if you don't have the consistency and you don't have enough fire in your belly and you don't have the drive and the right mentorship with whoever you're working with to get that done, that's not going to happen for you, right? So be real with it. It's not because, you know, I'm in real estate, it's just going to come at me.
Yeah.
The second one is it's constant hustle. So if I don't get up and I don't go out and I don't, you know, do these things and whatnot, your name is not out there. So you really got to be hustling all the time. And everyone you know, and not, you know, hustling is like, oh, here's my card. Do you want to sell? Do you want to buy? You know, it's just being known. So and networking a lot, right? So if you're not networking, family, friends, business chambers, all of these things, your name is not out there. It's not even real estate. Just anything is not gonna. It's not gonna sell, right? So you really have to be out there a whole heap for you to get some sort of success. And I would say the third for this purpose is complacency. So don't get complacent quickly enough, right? So you make some money, but guess what?
You can't rest on
So I've got this thing that where I've got a spreadsheet that I know what's coming in. The minute that money comes in, I get sad, not happy. And people around will be like, what do you mean? Just got paid. I'm like, when is the next one? So if I don't have the next one lined up, it's fine that it came in, right? And you've got to have the discipline to how to use that money wisely, right? Because guess what? Your next settlement might be months or weeks away.
So you gotta try to hold
you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't know how to strategize and sort of hold your dollar to be able to sustain yourself for that rainy day, as they say, or you know, that weeks or months that you don't have a listing or a sale, just don't get complacent. I'm so good. Like, you're good. Just take it easy. Just continue.
Don't go and buy a car.
Don't
your
get a
first
gap.
commission
Yeah,
check.
and people
'Cause you'll
do
be-
that all the
that's what-
time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, and some people say if you can't buy it cash, don't buy it at all, right? So in the sense that don't go over your means. But in saying that, I'll share this with you. One of the first, when I first started in real estate, I really wanted my first BMW, right? So at that time it was an E46, which is a 2000 for the people that know. And I just wanted a 318, just a basic model, right? So my brother said, go out there and get it, right? And I said, I don't have it. He goes, you will find it, right? You will make it. And it was very
powerful.
true, right?
Yeah,
That was very, very true, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't end up being an E46. It ended up being a C200, but that was my first 20-something, 25 grand car. And I was like, whoa,
Wow,
you know,
yeah.
now I'm driving, you know. Mind you, I owned cars in the past, but that was my first executive kind of level, you know, and you got to look the way. And people ask me all the time, so what do you have to drive these cars? It's like, it's part of the look. You got to be successful. So, but I wouldn't go the other extreme. So you wouldn't be seeing me, whether I can afford it or not. It's not the question. A Bugatti or a Ferrari and rocking up to a house. So tell me
You got to tailor it, don't you? To the
right.
people
So
that you meet.
be sophisticated, be executive, look good, smell good, drive good, but don't push the extremities, right?
Absolutely.
So people don't want to see you in a drop down Porsche rocking up. Like that's pushing it, right?
Absolutely.
That's pushing it.
Drive it on a Sunday.
Yeah,
or
especially
something.
if you can't afford it, right? But if you can afford it, do it in your own thing. Do it on a Sunday, do it whatever. But so
Absolutely.
just don't don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. People learn that later. So I'm over 40 now, so I sound a little bit older. But it's just you really don't need to prove yourself to anyone but yourself.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's good advice. That's good advice. Now, you and I spoke off air, and you mentioned you got 4 kids. So
I do.
your household must be pretty busy. So
Very
you got 4
busy.
kids and 7 businesses. So how do you do it? Tell me.
Look,
do you believe in work-life balance, or do you just sort of
look,
just
I do
prioritize
believe in it, but I also tell you that we all get the sense that we're trying to do it right.
Yeah.
Or I do have it right, until you're proven otherwise. But you're forever striving for that life-work balance, right?
Yeah.
So I do have 4 children, and my eldest is 15, my youngest is 8 currently, and it's a busy household. So I do the best that I can, and everyone understands that I'm out because I'm providing, and more so than that, I've got elderly parents. So being a
Lebanese
Middle Eastern background, generally, we have an obligation to look after them. So that takes a toll. I'm involved with community organizations. So yes, I have a couple of businesses, but the thing is, it's not easy for someone to juggle all things.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I like being busy. I love my schedule being busy. And sometimes multiple things on the same day or at the same time. But for me, that's joy.
Yeah.
And the minute that I'm not that busy, I feel like I'm not producing enough. Because I think that every hour counts, every minute counts.
How do you wind down?
I do Netflix right at the end, right? So
that's it.
so I'll just sit down and veg out. I have that
Do you
1
fish?
or 2
Do you
hours.
go fishing?
I don't fish enough. The trailer's got a flat tire and just sitting there with the boat sitting there. So, but you're right.
I can't imagine you fishing, sitting there fishing. It'd be too
I
boring for
do,
you.
I do. No, look, I enjoy my dull moments. It's just that there's time for this, time for that.
Yeah.
So even if I'm at home all day, I find things to do. Whilst the sun is up, I've got this thing that I've got to be doing something.
Yeah.
Sun's down, chill out. You know.
What are I'm interested to know, what are your non-negotiables? Like, what are things that?
So interesting.
Yeah. Like, what are some things that you just are non-negotiables? Like, whether that's time with the kids, whether that's your parent. Like, obviously, work doesn't stop, so the phone doesn't stop ringing and stuff like that. But what are some of the non-negotiables that you do? Like, do you block out your calendar? Do you say between this time and this time, my kids are my priority? Or do you take them to train? Like, what are some of the things that you do that aren't negotiable?
Look, a couple of things. That's a very, very interesting question. I don't think many people have ever asked me that. So thank you for that, because it makes me ponder and think.
Write it in your book.
I might. I find myself non-negotiable when tragedy, of course. But if anything, so family comes first, right? So
That's a non-negotiable.
Whether
family.
it's us being family, being mum and dad, and God rest their mum's soul. But whether it's dad or my family, which is my kids and my wife, anything along these lines, everything drops. Calendar gets cancelled. And I'll do that first. And I think everyone is doing that or should be doing that. And if you're not, just have that high priority. But also, for me, it's sort of whether it's charity work, whether it's and I know I don't want to get all religious here, but sort of God is important, right? Or if it's not God, it's just whatever deity or religion you practice. And I think it's to have that sort of consistency in your life of a higher power of whatever it is, right? And I always say is that if you don't feed something or follow something, it's to be feed of, right? Because you've got to have something in life that guides you spiritually. So spirituality generally, whether it's God or otherwise, it's just spirituality generally, I think it's forgotten about. And the psyche behind that is very, very important. So I think that's almost a non-negotiable, and I would advise people to have something rather than nothing, whatever it is. And I'm not, sort of dictating what it is. I use the word God, but people have many different versions of that, right? And each of their own in doing so. So, being a lot of gratitude comes out of that. A lot of, being thankful for what you have. The breath of air that you have, being able to provide the security, the safety that you're provided with. People out there, and when you do, going back to the beginning, when you come from a war-torn country and you see, and even if you travel, and I encourage people to travel a little bit. I don't do enough of it, but I should, in the sense that you get to see that we are so privileged, and people don't realize that. So gratitude is non-negotiable, right?
Yeah, that's important. Very important.
Family is non-negotiable. So things like that. Yeah. And if I was to add one to the mix of non-negotiables, that it's a tough one. But look, many different things, really. Yeah. I really can't pinpoint it to one, but
I think overall, family, spirituality, things like that, non-negotiable. That's important.
Yeah. And there's so much, but and each to their own. It's not to listen to this guy and say, well, he said that. It's not, each to their own. Like your non-negotiables are very different to mine, Hassan. Like in the sense of, you might think of, kids soccer is, is very, very important. And I've done that. I've been there and whatnot. And
that's a good point. So it might change too.
It does change. It does change. The kids have done karate, they've done swimming, they've done whatever.
Yeah.
And I involve myself as much as I can. Yeah. And certain things do get blocked out indefinitely. I'm not available at that time.
Yeah.
But you got to call the shot. So if you're employed, sometimes you don't have that flexibility, or your boss might not be understanding or whatever. Yeah. But when you're self-employed, it's a little bit, as I say, it's a little bit unfair that you can block out 2 to 3 on a weekday. Yeah. Most people maybe can't. Absolutely. You know what I mean?
100%.
But we're forever working. Like for me, as you said, my phone, my emails don't stop.
That's right.
That was the third thing, is that when I am in conversation with, whether it's my kids, my siblings, or my parents, is to actually drop everything and have that eye contact.
That is very important.
I think eye contact with anyone that you do. I think we forgot that art of communication, whereby you're not really present.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So presence is very, very important. So we're sitting here, we're connecting, we're understanding each other. Yeah, there's mics in front of us, but I think it's beyond that now. We're really getting each other.
Because it's the energy as well. Obviously, COVID, we had Zoom and we had Teams. The world kept going, but you can't beat the connection.
And it's
the energy.
typical that, there's memes about it all the time, that people are together, but they're not together. It's the Samsung and the iPhones together. Yeah. And they might be even messaging each other whilst they're sitting there. But so I think the human connection is very, very important. We could have done this over Zoom, but I don't think would have felt the same.
No, not at all.
Do you know? Absolutely. So, and I think, eye contact and really being present in anything that you're doing, whether it's just kicking the ball with a kid, or having a deep and meaningful chat with your missus or your dad or whatever, and just soak in that moment, because through trials, and not to turn this into a sad story, but I've lost my older sister and my mother of late, and it really reminds you of this stuff. And every second, every moment counts.
We're here for a good time, not a long time, right?
Look, so and whether it's a good time or whether it's, whichever way you look at it, it's just we're here for a limited time.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and not to be scared of that. It's to really embrace it and enjoy it and live it.
Only 2 things that are promised: death and taxes.
That's right, so, right? So, not to turn it into a sad story, but I think that's the reality of it. You've got to wake up to that, and if you don't.
Every day above Earth's a good day. You're here.
That's
wake
all.
up.
That's
and
all.
Just
So
get out and
there's less, and as I say, and I use it. I think a little bit of wisdom comes after 40, right?
Must be the grace.
So maybe the grace, yeah. So if you're looking at this, you'll see. But you'll find that less things matter, less things get to heart, and you just got to push it away. So whether it's grief, whether it's being upset, whether it's disappointment, you're gonna cop that a lot in life, like so much. But what that does to you, what's important, right? So how do you bounce out of that?
How do you bounce back,
right? So you're going to get disappointed. You're going to get grieved. You're going to get all sorts of mixed emotions. Yeah. But does that mean I go sit in the corner and sob about it for, look, you might need to do it for a minute or 2.
Absolutely.
I would not do it for much longer than that, a day or 2. Yeah. But get back up.
Bounce out. Horse, keep going.
You have to, right? Because time doesn't play with you. It's playing against you in that sense. So the longer you're, sort of in the fetal position, the less you're out there doing everything else.
Imagine back when you did the door-to-door salesman and that first no that you copped, you said that you throw it in, you probably wouldn't
I
have been
would
here today.
not. Yeah, exactly.
Who
right.
would have known where you've been?
Exactly
so
right.
You're going to cop all the no's. Just keep going.
Absolutely.
Keep going. We're gonna we get to the end of the podcast now,
Thank
but
you.
I've got 2 questions.
Okay,
right?
another 2.
The first one is, if you were to host a dinner party,
Ah.
who are the top 3 people you'd bring, alive or dead?
Oh. You know now, and that I've lost my mother and my sister, so of course they'll be on the table. But but if it wasn't for that, and if we're talking about other, let's talk business. This is a business podcast, right? So let's talk about business. You know, you'll find it quite funny. But you know, the Tate, I never understood Tate or followed him until of late, and I don't mind his.
You've met Andrew Tate?
Sorry, so I never understood what he stands for, but I followed a little bit of what he's doing, and I think it'd be an interesting.
He would be interesting to have at the dinner table.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So he would be a business-wise. So we're talking a business.
But even having a different perspective on
life,
everything's going
generally
through,
life,
so
right?
That's good.
So I think
He's
it
one.
will bring a lot of vibe to the table, whether it's positive or negative. So you know, you're going to find this quite funny. So I grew up with you know, sort of the typical rap, you know, sort of, you know, hype. Whether it's Tupac or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right? So, and rap and hip hop. So, but I actually look at Dr. Dre in a different light.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's very, very successful. He created beats and sold it and all that, right? And I think he's worth a lot of money, right?
Isn't it over $1 billion?
So I haven't looked into his history a lot, but I don't know for what reason, but he keeps coming, maybe because I follow him on Instagram or something. But I think he would be such an interesting character to learn from, right? Because he's been there, done that. He stayed firm. He's successful in business, so he didn't get lost in the rap and everything that comes with it.
He'd be good.
You know,
I think actually look into this. I think could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. He lost his brother. His brother got murdered when they were young, and that was the catalyst for him to get out. But double check it.
Well, there's a lot. Yeah.
But I read it. I read it in a book, so it's got to be
and
true.
another person that I can't go past, and I've I've read up a little bit more about him and understand his history more, but I love what he stood for and how he carried himself doing it, is the late Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yes.
Right? So I think he stood, generally, I think whether you understand his teachings or you don't, but for him to use his fame and power to, you know, call for life-changing events in the world, I think that's big.
Even when he was at the peak, right?
Yeah.
To go fight in the Vietnam War, and he said, "I'm not going."
Right.
So
I think he stood for a lot lot of good things. You
that
know,
would be an interesting dinner.
Yeah.
You could sell a lot of
Imagine
tickets
that.
to that.
Yeah.
You could sell a lot of tickets. But that would be good. Oh, that's awesome. Some rapid fire questions to finish it off. What's your favorite food?
Food, lasagna.
Favorite getaway, holiday destination?
Anything there is water and sand.
Okay. What's your favorite quote?
Quote. Dad taught me this, and it's got heritage to it. So it's in Arabic, so the English version of it.
Say it in Arabic, and then
do you want me to say
it? Yeah.
Okay, let me recall it now.
I won't be able to understand it.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, so it says in Arabic, اعمل لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا واعمل لآخرتك كأنك تموت غدا. So what it says is work, do, strive for your life as if you are going to live forever. And work, strive for your afterlife as if you're going to die tomorrow.
Wow, that's profound.
Right.
I think I've heard it, but
so it's got authentic heritage.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's a prophetic or it's got that background. But I found it to be such a strong sort of point in between working for this life, which we all are, and this is what we're doing, but working for their afterlife. So what have you prepared for that? You know, kind of thing. Profound. So that balance.
How old were you when he said that to you? For you to remember that?
Look, he's said it for a while, and I never understood it until probably of late. Yeah. And now I repeat it. And I actually told him about, I reminded him of it. And, you know, of course, he knows it. Yeah. But then I found its source, and its source is quite, you know, sort of profound as well.
Would you say he's your biggest inspiration?
My father?
Yeah.
Look, my father is an inspiration, definitely. Of course, he's my father and he's taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And he's in a state now that he's not in the best of health.
Yeah.
So, look, he inspires me in different ways. You know, there's certain things that, of course, I would do differently. And we all should have our own flavor of life. But of course, there's certain things, probably with the business acumen that he had and some of the teachings that way, there's things to be learned. And of course, molded to my style of doing things.
Yeah. All right, Roy, for the listeners or the viewers, how do they get in touch with you?
I'm available. So whether it's property related, so I sort of put out the flag out there as a property mentor. I'm on all the social media platforms.
What's that? What is it? How do you get you on social?
LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and call or email. Probably call.
What's
email
your social handles? Are they all the same? Is it your name?
Or
is it
so it's Roy Halabi. So my Arabic name is Rayed. So I think I use Roy Rayed Halabi just to keep it authentic, and that's almost the same everywhere on my social.
So they can find you on that, and the website Guardian Property.
So gps.properties. So www.gps.properties will get you to our website and our list of services there.
Perfect.
And of course, my contact details are there also.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on. I
Thank you. Thank you, Hassan. It's lovely.
So thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed the episode as much as I did, sitting in the chair with Roy. I learned a lot from him. His journey is truly inspiring. As I mentioned earlier on, coming from humble beginnings to where he is now. Look, if you're looking at reaching out to Roy, he mentioned his handles, Guardian Property Services. For us, if you're looking at getting your property ready for market, reach out to renosell.com.au. Thanks for watching.